Hi, my name is Chris Clausen. When I'm not running my paint business, playing music, or walking my dog Bob, I'm a yoga teacher. It all started in 2000 when I made a bad jump on a trampoline and broke my lower back. After about a year, I tried yoga as a way to reduce my chronic pain and increase mobility. Over time, I learned it's not just what poses are best for my back, it's how to do them correctly and in a way that's best for my body. Now I'm virtually pain-free and doing things that I never thought possible after my injury. So in 2007, I became a certified Iyengar yoga instructor and have been teaching classes and privately ever since. In each episode of this show, I'll focus on an area of the body and teach you how to do poses that will help you reduce pain, increase mobility, and just feel better. I'm Chris Clausen, and this is The Yoga Show. Hey everybody, my name is Chris Clausen, the host of The Yoga Show, the show where we look a little bit more deeply at poses and the people that do them. Today, my special guest student is Sandy Metzger-Murphy. She is a physical therapist over at Star Therapy in East Nashville. We're going to begin the episode with a little bit of talking, a little interview, and then after that, we're going to work on some poses that are specifically good for the lower back. Please stick around. As we say on The Yoga Show, stay tuned.
Minutes ago, you have to be careful how you word it. Some
Yeah.
people, if you say this is yoga, they aren't going to do it. But if you show them something and it feels good or helps, then they'll do it.
You surreptitiously sneak in the yoga. That's great.
At that point, for me, it's knowing the right resource in the community to find the right fit for that patient to start yoga outside of therapy.
So much of what we're both talking about right now is how important it is to really just self-motivate too, right? And as a yoga teacher, as a PT, you can point people in the right direction. You can give them the instructions that will help them. But it's up to us as practitioners, as students, as patients to do the work.
It is.
I'm very humbled when I teach in classes, and I have students that are in their 80s, and they come every class. Afterwards, some people are just, I'm so exhausted. But there's a few of these people that have come, and again, they're in their 80s, and they come in, they're done. That was lovely. That was wonderful. And you just, oh my God, I hope I can have that when I'm 80. I hope I live to be 80, let alone have that willingness to go to class, that body that is healthy enough to get there. It's really, that's all we're really striving for, right?
Yes.
So we're at 12 South Yoga over in the 12 South District, and we're standing in front of a very special wall to me. This is when I broke my back. About a year afterwards, I hadn't been doing any kind of exercise or yoga afterwards. I was in tremendous pain. I came here, and the teacher at the time brought me to this wall and showed me a few very simple things that really led me to a place where I was out of chronic pain. It was very much the beginning of me recovering from my broken back. So we're going to work on something, again, very simple, very deceptively simple, but very, very effective for those of you who have problems with your lower back in particular. I'm going to ask Sandy to turn around. Take her hands up. Now you can see that her toes have turned out a little bit, and this is very common, right? We're a little bit tight in the hips and toes want to turn out. I'm going to ask her to get her feet parallel, outer edges of the feet to be even. And in fact, she's going to try to roll her inner knees and inner thighs slightly back. Now when that happens, the butt wants to go with it. She wants to fight against that. Keep rolling the inner thighs in as the tops of the buttocks go down. And you can see what happens is there's a little bit more room that happens in the lumbar spine. She's going to keep reaching the chest up, crawling up the wall like Spider-Man, as she creates more and more space in that lumbar spine. And then when she comes out, she just pushes off the wall, releases, and out. So some of the subtle instructions in a lot of these yoga poses can be a little bit difficult to grasp. One of them is this rolling of the inner thighs back in order to help protect that lower back. When we're in class, we ask our students to take a block between the thighs. And the first instruction I give is to roll the block forwards. And what happens, the inner thighs roll forward, and then there's constriction because you feel a little tightness that happens in the back, right? What happens when you roll the block forward is the lower back gets more constricted. To do the opposite, she wants to push the block back. Yes, rolling the inner thighs back to help the block roll back. And then from there, for a moment, take your hands to your waist, Sandy. The challenge, the gravy, the best part of this pose, of this action, is when you take the buttocks flesh down as you roll the inner thighs back. These two things seemingly work apart against each other. The inner thighs are rolling back and the buttock flesh pushing down creates space in the lower back. So now we're going to incorporate the block into the upward hand pose. So Sandy's going to take her hands to the wall as she did before. She strongly rolls the block away from the wall and strongly takes the tops of the buttock flesh down. And from here, you can see a little more flatness that happens in this lumbar spine, a little more room. And then when she comes out, she just relaxes the hips a little bit to carefully come out of the pose. So another one of the very first things that I learned after I'd injured my back, after I'd broken my back, I literally, because the back was broken, I could not bend forward. I couldn't, any farther forward than this would be miserable and I would just fall over. So one of the instructions I had, one of the poses I was supposed to work on was doing forward bends with support. So I'm going to show you roughly how I did it. Sandy's going to turn to her side, take her hands to the back of the chair. And that is your support. Which is to say, for some of us who have noticeable lower back problems, when you're bending forward, it really starts to hurt unless you have support of the hands, something to keep your lower back from having to work so hard. It's very good to bend forward if you're not in desperate pain. So with that in mind, I'm going to ask Sandy to just begin to walk her feet back and bend forward, and using the chair for a little bit of support, pushing the hands down so her back and her chest don't have to work quite as hard. The intention is to try to get that middle spine in, the dorsal spine deeper and deeper in, and lengthening. She's reaching her chest forward as she pushes her thighs back. She's sort of putting herself in a state of traction, reaching the chest forward as the thighs push back. But what's even more important is coming out. You don't want to just come up. You want to walk towards the support. So your back doesn't work. Bend the legs, walk towards the chair to come up again. So we're going to do all of these, a variety of standing poses, using our back to the wall, because this is one of the best ways to learn a lot of these poses so we can get the alignment correct. Okay. Sandy's going to do triangle pose with the back of the wall. She's going to separate her feet 4 to 5 feet apart. Turn her left toes in, turn her whole right leg out. And then she's going to take her arms out to the sides and then go on into the pose. I would ask you to separate your feet a little wider, a little deeper. Yep. Now what I want to emphasize for Sandy is that both legs are truly straight, that the kneecaps are lifting, the thighs, the quadriceps are quite firm. Also, she wants to work on rolling this knee from inside out, the thigh from inside out. And as she does this, she cuts her right hip deeper and deeper in. With all of that, she opens the chest more to the ceiling. And then come out, pull from the top hand. Good. Other side. Right toes in, left leg out. So again, emphasize that the knees, the thighs should be quite firm. That left thigh should roll out. the front leg thigh. She's going to take her arms out to the sides. Keeping the legs firm, take your hand down to your knee. So the integrity of the legs, the firmness of the legs is necessary in order for the spine to be able to open up even more and to release. So Sandy's rolling that right rib cage back while still keeping the thighs quite firm. And then when she comes out, she presses through that back heel to come up. Make the feet parallel. So one of the things I want to emphasize through all these poses is how it is unnecessary to take your hand down to the floor. Oftentimes we think that that is the goal, and we end up sacrificing the pose itself in order to get the hand where we think it's supposed to go. In this case, we're going to do triangle pose and take the hand to the seat of a chair. If you have a chair at home, I'm assuming you have a chair at home, most likely, most of us do. You can use that for a prop, which is quite effective. So Sandy's going to separate her feet. Left toes in, right leg out. Her right foot is sort of underneath the seat of the chair. She can keep her left hand on her waist and just take the right hand down to the seat of the chair. So there's support here now. She actually wants to push that right hand into the chair for a little bit of support of the chest and keep rolling the top chest to the wall, and she can take that left arm up. So support is good. Again, this helps find space in the body so things aren't getting too constricted. The support there also keeps some of the strain off of the lower back. When she comes out, she pulls from the top hand and comes up. Now there are a variety of other supports you can use. You can switch to a block at its highest point, at its midpoint, at its lowest point. You can use almost any prop, any piece of furniture you might need to help you come into the pose for a little bit of support. So the next pose we're going to work on is known as side angle pose, a Parshva Konasana. I'm going to ask Sandy to separate her feet as she did in the last pose, triangle pose. She's going to turn her left toes in and her whole right leg out. Now she's going to keep this back leg straight and bend the front leg. And Sandy's being very good about making sure that the knee is directly over the heel. In fact, undo that, just do the wrong way a little bit. Undone or make that knee go past. Either way is a little bit more risky on the knee. It's much healthier to keep the knee directly over the heel. Now she's going to keep her left hand on her waist and take her right elbow to her right knee. Resting here, just like she did in triangle pose, she's going to work on rolling the top chest more to the wall. And then she can take that left arm up and over. And she gets as long as she can, extending from the outer left foot through the left fingertips, all the way, keeping that length and extension through the whole left flank, left side of the body. Your knee is turning in. There it is. Yep. And then when she comes out, she presses through the back leg and comes up. I'm just going to ask her to do the other side. Keeping that back leg very firm, she's going to go ahead and take that left forearm, left elbow to the knee. And she uses that support, pressing the left forearm, elbow into the knee to help roll that right chest, again, more open, more towards the ceiling. And then she takes that right arm up and over. A long line of extension from the right outer foot, pressing heavily into the floor all the way through the very tips of the fingers. And then when she comes out, she presses that back foot into the floor to come up. Make the feet parallel and walk them together. So if you want to try to go a little bit farther, you can use a chair, same way we did for triangle pose, or we can just go with the blocks in the same way. So I'm going to ask Sandy again to separate her feet. And she turns that whole right thigh out to turn the right leg out, and then she bends that leg. She'll start by taking the elbow to the knee just to get adjusted and get the placement of the body, rolling that left chest back, and then from here, if she wants to go farther, if you want to go farther, I'm going to ask Sandy to take her hand down to the block. So it's a little bit deeper, which means she has to fight, in fact, quite a bit harder on the back leg, keeping the grounding of the outer back leg foot. And then from there, she again extends, lengthening from the outer left foot all the way through the fingertips. The knee is still coming in. Yeah, there it is, open. keeping the knee directly over that foot and keeping the chest rolling towards the wall. I'm going to ask Sandy to come to the floor. She's going to get the block out of the way, go a little bit deeper. So these are all the different variations. As we get deeper into the pose, of course, you can see that things get a little bit more cramped and more complicated. I would recommend, if it feels cramped or complicated, go back to the blocks. Go ahead and take your arm up and over. Do the actual pose. Yeah. And then to come out, she grounds that back leg, comes back up. We'll go to the other side. So she's got her knee directly over the heel. She's going to enter the same way she did before, taking the elbow to the knee first, rolling that right chest back. And then from there, I'm going to ask her to go one step deeper, taking her left hand down to the block. And again, if the block is too much, you're welcome to use the chair, like we did for triangle pose. Sandy's going to take her arm up and over, right arm up and over, and lengthen and extend from the outer right foot all the way through the right fingertips. Even the fingernails should get long. Because Sandy's a little more flexible, I'm going to let her demonstrate without the block. So take your left hand one step farther down. But as you can see, things get a little bit more constricted. If it feels like you're overdoing it, you can always go back to the support of the block or the chair. When she comes out, she presses that back leg and back foot into the floor and comes up. Make the feet parallel and walk them together. Ardha Chandrasana half moon pose. So I'm going to ask Sandy to separate her feet. Like she did in the last several poses, she's going to turn her left toes in and her right leg out. And now keeping her left hand on the waist, she's going to bend her right leg and then take her hand down to the block. So from here it's a movement. She's going to step her back leg in and move the hand forward a little bit and then take the back leg up, and she's just going to fall into the wall. Just like triangle pose, is that Sandy wants to roll the chest more towards the wall. So instead of the chest falling towards the ground, she's trying to open the chest to the ceiling. The other thing is, you can see that Sandy's aerial leg is awake and in fact reaching. I often say in class that you should feel like you're standing on the aerial leg as much as you are on the down leg. Keeping that grounding, that awareness of the aerial leg helps protect the back. She's going to take her left arm up and expand from every direction, like rays from the moon or from the sun. From the center of the body, should expand outwards. You can see that her hand is directly below her shoulder, and she's working on opening the chest towards the wall to keep space. When she comes out, she takes her hands to her waist, right hand, left hand to the waist. She's going to come out, bend the leg, foot to the floor, and up. We'll go ahead and go directly to the other side. You're going to turn those right toes in, the left leg out. She's going to bend that front leg and then take her left hand down to the block. Even before she's going into the pose, I want to make sure Sandy is touching the wall. There he is. So it might just be the butt that touches the wall. Just something to keep a sense of balance, so you don't have to worry so hard about that. And then she steps the back leg in, taking that right leg up. And you can see that again, instead of Sandy's chest turning towards the floor, she's opening her chest upwards towards the ceiling, rolling her right rib cage more towards that wall. The wall is doing its job, of course, keeping her balanced and stable, and she can take that right arm up. But you can see again that this aerial leg is awake, and she should be in fact lengthening from the inner groin towards the inner foot. And then when she comes out, she can bend that left leg, lower the right leg down, and come on back up. And this is Ardha Chandrasana, and again, I would highly recommend practicing this pose at a wall to start. So now I'm going to ask Sandy to do Ardha Chandrasana using a little bit more support, using a chair instead of a block, just so you can see some of the variations. She's going to separate her feet, turn the left toes in, turn the right leg out, and then she's going to bend that right leg and take her forearm to the seat of the chair. It's a little bit more stable than a block. She's going to step her back foot in, move the chair a little forward, and then go on into the pose. Again, the wall is your friend, helping you find balance and opening in the chest. But you can also see that there might be a little bit of a subtle adjustment that needs to happen. So in this case, just to balance things out a little bit more for Sandy, I'm going to ask her to take her forearm now under the block. That block is right there. She's going to take it under the forearm just for a subtle adjustment. Maybe this will be a little bit better than the forearm on the chair. Does that help at all?
It does.
Is that good? Is it better? But this is an important point. Finding the props that really help you get more deep in the pose. Ardha Chandrasana with support. And then she bends her leg and comes on out. So it's important to remember that when we're practicing these poses, that it's more than just stretching or strengthening. Within the classical system of yoga, there are what are known as the 8 limbs or the Ashtanga of yoga. The first limb is yama. This means social or ethical disciplines. Number 2 is niyama. This means more individual observances. Number 3 is the one we know the best, asana, poses. Number 4 is pranayama. There's that word yama again. Prana means breath or vital energy, so control or discipline of the breath or vital energy. Number 5 is pratyahara, which means withdrawal of the senses, taking your 5 senses and keeping them within the bounds of the skin. Number 6 is dharana, which means focus, the idea that you're holding your attention on one spot for a certain period of time. Number 7 is dhyana. This means meditation. Number 8 is samadhi. This is sort of this state of illumination, the result of the practice of the other 7 limbs of yoga. In future episodes, we're going to look primarily at just the yamas, these social ethical disciplines, and find ways that we can incorporate them into the practice of the poses to make the practice of the poses something richer, more spiritual, something more yogic. Things I thought was really cool was when I went to see you at Star.
Yeah.
And just the level of confidence that you had in your job and the professionalism. How long have you been training as a physical therapist?
Oh, I graduated in '99, so 18 years.
So, wow, right on.
Yeah.
And so what drove you? What made you want to do that? What got you
therapy.
into? Yeah.
I didn't know what I wanted to do at first. I grew up on a farm,
Yeah.
so I just went ahead and went to my first semester at the University of Kentucky, and another girl I was taking classes with, she was telling me about physical therapy. So I volunteered that summer, and I really, really just fell in love. It was like a light bulb moment for me.
Yeah,
I thought,
yeah.
well, look at all these different things our bodies can do, how they're related, what happens when they don't work. That was almost more intriguing to me than what happens when they work the right way.
Right.
It took maybe 4 or 5 years before I felt like really, really comfortable in doing those things and making adjustments. And even now, as you go to a different course and learn new skills, it takes a while to feel comfortable with those. Even though you've been a therapist for 15, 20 years, that particular task or skill is new, and that takes practice too.
Yeah. Are there any sort of things that you do now that you wouldn't have done 20 years ago?
I think it's kind of like fashion or anything else in that it comes full circle.
Oh, okay.
So when I first started, it was a lot of looking at the whole body, not just the affected body part. And then it became very specific. I wanted you to get a very specific diagnosis, get as focused in on something as you can. And now maybe in the past 5 or 6 years, it started to come back around to look at the whole body.
Oh, interesting.
Again, and I think some of that is driven by just information that's out in the community that everybody's doing, tends to do more functional exercise than specific exercise. And also a lot of insurance companies dictate kind of how the glasses that we have to look at things.
That makes sense.
And that has changed dramatically since
So
I've
that-
been a therapist.
Okay. Now you hit on a good point, and maybe we'll go there.
Right.
Of course, you have to make decisions
Mm-hmm.
on how you treat someone based on what the insurance company asks you to do or expects you to do. Are there often times when you just disagree with
Every day.
Yeah, okay,
I
right.
feel like it's my job to be my patient's advocate.
There you go.
So there's been many times I've gotten on the phone to try to fight for my patient to get them more visits or extended time, and largely that's to somebody that doesn't have a lot of medical background, so it's hard. You don't have as many visits to work with, and so you're teaching from the minute somebody walks in the door how they can manage that by themselves.
Right. So your patients probably have fewer chances to come see you.
That's true. They're either given a very limited number of visits, or it becomes cost prohibitive, that maybe they have more visits but their copay is $45, $50 a time.
Right.
So that's a lot to ask of somebody to pay $100 a week.
Of course, if they're maybe not working because of the
Exactly.
injury, and then it just compounds everything.
Exactly.
Right? So I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Yoga Show. I would like to thank Sandy Metzger-Murphy for coming around and working on some poses with us. If you're interested in getting any information about physical therapy or getting some physical therapy, Sandy works over at Star Physical Therapy right in East Nashville. In next week's episode, we'll have a very good friend of mine and drummer, Dave Colella, working on poses that are good for drummers. Please stick around, stay tuned, and I'll see you next week.
I heard the big sound, the man-child is waking up. Warm sand and sunshine, something to ease my mind. I seek the anodyne. It's up to